Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Rashmi Sinha from Indira Gandhi National Open University. Today we are going to talk on the module IMP, Role of Maternal Education from the paper Human Growth, Development and Nutrition. Now what are we going to learn in this module? The main objective of this module is to bring out the strength that education has in women's life, which could completely modify and bring a shift. At the end of the reading, you will get to know what is maternal education, the need to study the role of maternal education, 3. The effect of maternal education on child's health, 4th, the effect of maternal education on maternal health, 5. What are MDGs in respect to health of child and women, and finally, what programs have been initiated by the government to promote maternal education. Let us understand what maternal education means. Maternal education is generally defined as number of years of schooling a mother has completed, or in other words, the highest educational degree or diploma a mother has achieved. Various dimensions of child's life get affected with the influence of maternal education in both positive and negative ways. Most of all, it affects the social and emotional development, cognitive development, academic score, grades, and most essentially of all, mother's life itself. Generally, in demographic researches, it is observed that child mortality differentials are highly dependent on relationship status of maternal education and child survival, which in turn yields the socio-economic behavioral factor affecting the mortality rates. But in anthropological work, we are less concerned about the kind of relationship and would find this task studying role of culture and social change in terms of individual characteristics as surprising. Henceforth, anthropological definition of the phrase maternal education suggests a rational actor model where a person or an actor makes decision about the behavior based on rational analysis on advantages and disadvantages linked with possible actions or inaction. In simpler terms, the phrase identifies a central individual, the mother, and the word education implies knowledge and skills associated with logical decision making. Demographic findings yield consistent and persuasive monotonic decline in infant and child mortality rates, which are associated with the increasing educational status of mothers. However, it is not clear whether education should have such a universal effect on the risk of child death, and most importantly, what constitutes the essential component of such a strong association. This raises up the need to unfold the packaging of this complex association. On the other hand, anthropologists are concentrating on the acquisition of literacy among women and show that rationality exists as an essential parameter of all societies. Need to study the role of maternal education. Education should not be seen as a single act but as a social process involved in instructing, acquiring, and transforming knowledge. Apart from being a process associated with socio-economic development, education can transform demographic regimes through changes in individual actions. It has transformative action on one's social relations and actions. When associated with women, it yields self-esteem and self-worthy nature of an individual attaining it. Its consequences are hard to evaluate, but evidences show that educated women are likely to be better service users than less educated women. Women often need to be very resourceful, and it seems that education acts as an asset here. Being educated enhances the ability of a woman to express herself, communicate effectively, and evaluate and analyze each and every component of human life. Therefore, it becomes possible to explain why, for instance, the difference in childhood survival related to maternal education that persists in urban areas where there is much greater availability of health services. Thus, the positive effect of education on women's care for their children manifests less in direct changes in domestic behavior, but more in general transformation of women's social value. In this sense, education continues to remain a proxy for other social factors. The question could be turned round by seeing not an educated woman as a product, but education as a part of an individual. Why do some women in adverse circumstances persist in getting educated? Or do the same characteristics that led them to study make them more confident, more able to confront recalcitrant health workers? As Dasgupta says, that women's basic abilities and personality characteristics, independently of education, occupation, income, and wealth, can alone explain to a large extent the survival chances of their children. That is, education is acting to reinforce pre-existing circumstances and traits that are favorable to effective mothering in later life. Health theories associated with education. One theory, which was developed by economist Michael Grossman, focuses on education and schooling as a central factor in demand for health. The Grossman theory asserts that those who have obtained high levels of education are more efficient producers of health. Here, when he talks about higher education, he meant schooling. Given that health is a function of medical care, environment, and lifestyle, the health production function shifts up and becomes steeper with more education because people can produce it more efficiently. For example, those who are educated have acquired the understanding of technology and knowledge of medical and other market inputs that are necessary in producing positive health outcomes. Thus, the demand for health of those obtaining higher levels of education is greater. Another theory that was developed by Victor Fox focuses on time discounting as a method in which people choose to invest in both education and health. Those who possess high discount rates favor investments that produce immediate returns, while those with low discount rates prefer investments with long-term benefits. Prediction through studies on maternal education. Education is believed to be the key to upward social mobility of a child as well as well-unit family. What it does? 1. It predicts child's academic achievements that includes reading skills, mathematical thinking skills. 2. It proves to be a good indicator of one's peer relationship. And 3. It would also predict child's externalizing and internalizing behavioral problems. Role of maternal education. Clearly, mother has essential role in child's, families and her own health life, where her education acts as a valuable add-on. Therefore, at this point of time, it becomes necessary to assess the degree of influence that the add-ons has on other intervening variables such as the probability of child survival, child's social, behavioral, emotional, and cognitive development, child's nutritional status, immunization, and vaccination events associated to a healthy life, child's mortality rates, fertility rates, and most important of all, the maternal health itself. Maternal education influences child survival. The influence of mother's education in the event of child upbringing through various pathways other than some socioeconomic determinants were firstly put into action by Cladwell way back in 1979. Cladwell suggested three main pathways through which mother's education might enhance child's health survival. A. Shift from fatalistic acceptance of health outcomes towards implementation of simple health knowledge. B. Increased capability to manipulate the modern world, including interaction with medical personnel. And C. Shift familial power structure, permitting educated women to exert greater control over health choice for children. Such an association is found to prevail in similar consistency in both rural and urban settings. There are few empirical evidences that help in understanding that children of an educated mother are more likely to survive in infancy than that of an uneducated mother. This approach is based on social and economic differences as well as the actual and direct could not be well specified. Usually, the educated mother either belongs to the city or urban setting or to the powerful elite clan or tribal family and therefore tends to have a better access and availability of resources as food, water, sanitation, which ultimately gives a positive mark on the health status of the child and other members of the family. In a general setup, we see that educated mothers have the following specialities while considering health-related aspects of family. She is able to assess medical services and follow advice as prescribed by medical practitioner. 2. She has a greater power of fulfilling the responsibility of giving proper care to unhealthy child or other member of the family, engage in child care practices and enhance child health. According to John Hopcraft in a paper published by United Nations, maternal education is a very powerful and pervasive correlate of child survival. Moreover, the association of child survival with maternal education remains strong in the face of a wide range of other control. Maternal education affects child survival in two ways. Number one, the first way is known as the household production of health in the health economics literature. It happens through better child care practices and higher standards of hygiene at home and more rational and greater use of preventive and curative medical services. It is hypothesized that the effectiveness with which basic child health promoting inputs such as personal hygiene, prenatal and postnatal care, and feeding practices are combined improves with the level of education of the mother. It is also argued that education gives greater independence to the mother who will help her take child health promoting decisions without any hindrance. Number two is the influence is through the superior health seeking behavior of educated mothers. There is a considerable empirical evidence from the less developed countries in all parts of the world that the propensity to use preventive and curative health services for self and children are high among educated mothers. Educated mothers are also found to have superior knowledge of diseases and they seek timely treatment more often. However, some studies deny superior healthcare knowledge on the part of educated mothers, particularly among those with lower levels of education. There are some associations of child survival with women's education that are not considered in demographic literature. I am going to enumerate them. A. Increase in age at marriage leads to improved maternal health during age at first birth and thus a healthy child is born. B. Decrease in maternal mortality rates due to proper education system that tends women to go for regular health checkups and let the women know about the hazardous situations. C. An educated woman receives trained and professionally handled delivery, thereby reduces morbidity frequency and maternal mortality rates. And D. The most important of all, an educated woman is aware of prenatal care and benefits that she and her child could obtain from immunization and vaccination. To sum up, the availability evidence indicates a strong and independent association between mother's education and child health, but the exact mechanism through which it operates are yet not clear. Maternal education leads to child socio-behavioral and cognitive development. Education is believed to reduce inter- and intragenerational transmission of social inequalities. It not only acts as a tool of empowering women, but also helps them to bring up their children in a more efficient manner. In terms of cognitive development of child, education can enable women to provide a cognitively stimulating environment for their children, also use language which is developmentally enhancing and support the physical, social and emotional development of the children. However, In the delicate equilibrium of intra-household relations, the mother-child interactions can be heavily affected by the maternal health of the mother. Mental disorder during pregnancy and months following childbirth can alter the home's environment. It can also reduce mother's engagement with and alters mother's speech towards the child and impact on the overall quality of parenting provision. As a result, children of mothers who suffer from mental disorders tend to be affected in their growth, show emotional and behavioral, as well as high rates of insecure attachment and depressive behaviors. Poor maternal mental health also has important consequences on children's cognitive functioning and their overall school achievements. Given that maternal education is a key factor for enhancing child development and that maternal mental health problems can hinder this process, the role of maternal education as a protective factor becomes crucial. Generally speaking, there are three hypotheses pertaining to the role of maternal education on cognitive development of the child. Let's handle each of them one by one. First, education can reduce the risk of maternal health disorders, in particular depression. This is because education has direct effects on self-esteem, confidence, and locus of control, which impacts on overall mental well-being. Previous studies have found that education has a direct association with depression, in particular for women, that the impact of education on health strengthens with age, and that the relationship between education and women's mental health is particularly important during motherhood. Second hypothesis is that maternal education can attenuate the negative effects of maternal mental health disorders on child development. Due to their education, mothers who suffer from minor psychiatric disorders can be empowered to better manage their health conditions. In other words, the magnitude of the relationship between maternal depression and children's school attainment is reduced when maternal education is introduced as a control in the analysis. Importantly, the third hypothesis states that education can change the nature of relationship between maternal mental health problems and child development, moderating the consequences of maternal mental health for children and hence affecting the intergenerational transmission of disadvantage. The association between maternal mental disorders in the post-birth period and child development is stronger among families living in socioeconomic deprivation. This suggests that maternal mental illness does not affect children equally within the population. It is possible that maternal education can enhance or hinder existing inequalities. Maternal education and child's nutritional status or physical development. It is an important perspective. In developing countries, maternal education has a positive impact on the nutritional status of a child. In most of the planning and developmental strategies, education remains as an essential element. The effect is particularly strong for a female education. Particularly in India, education has been shown to explain the downfall of malnutrition and death, and even low levels of education have been shown to increase child survival prospects and health-related behaviors. But the situation doesn't prevail as it is throughout the world. Exposure time plays an essential factor that affects the child care. The overall quality of a child care gets enhanced when there are other household members other than mother who are capable enough to offer this potential. Moreover, positive association between child nutrition and community level maternal education gives evidence that children benefits from living in a literate communities, as there are lower frequencies of child stunted growth or undernourishment. Maternal education and child mortality rates. Some statistical evidence support that maternal education improves child health and decreases the risk of child mortality. Studies evidence negative relationship between maternal education and child mortality rates, and this type of relationship is universal. Therefore, one needs to answer what could be the causal mechanism that underlie it, especially in spatial, cultural, and temporal context. Generally, this type of relationship is improbable and to a large extent depends on socioeconomic and cultural settings in which women may acquire some education, schooling, or teaching process. Relationships between women's role and mortality of children are harder to obtain and interpret, especially in the developing countries. It is a genuine case that education gives women the power and confidence to take decisions. Caldwell in 1979 argued that three factors are of a great importance in this respect. 1. Reduction in fatalism in the face of children's ill health. 2. Capability in manipulating the world. 3. Change in traditional balance of families' relationship that shifts the focus of power away from patriarch and mother-in-law and ensures that a greater share of available resources is devoted to children. In September 1994, 186 national delegations and thousands of NGOs met at Cairo for UN International Conference in Population and Development. Most of the participants agreed upon having urgent need to invest on imparting education to female section of society. The program of action argues that raised levels of women's education will ultimately reduce mortality rates along with the fertility level and thereafter will act as a cornerstone of demographic and healthy policy in developing nation. What are the causes of child illness and death? Most important and influencing factors leading to child morbidity and mortality are A. Poverty, B. Undernutrition and malnutrition, C. High fertility, and D. Short birth intervals. Infant mortality rate, defined as number of infants per thousand live births in a population, measures an outcome of development process as it is known to be result of wide variety of outputs. 1. Nutritional status and health knowledge of the mothers. 2. Level of immunization and oral rehydration therapy. 3. Availability of maternal and child health services. D. Income and food availability in the family. E. Availability of safe drinking water and basic situations. And F. Safety of the child's environment, among other factors. Maternal education and immunization or vaccination process of child. Immunization is a vital key to the health and survival of infants and children in the United States and around the world. According to Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization, of the over 10 million deaths among the children under 5 in 2002, about one quarter were attributable to diseases that are already or soon will be vaccine preventable. World Health Organization in 2001 defined health is a complete physical, mental, and social well-being state and not only absence of disease or ailment. 4 of the major vaccines needed to reduce the risk of poor health in children include diphtheria, tetanus, toxoids, acellular pertussis vaccine, that is DTP, inactivated poliovirus vaccine IPV, and measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine MMR, and Haemophilus influenza type B vaccine, that is HIV. The National Network for Immunization Information reports that the likelihood of contracting the disease and becoming violently ill is 30 times greater if not immunized. Now, the question arises, how does the level of education of a woman affect the immunization process of a child? In countries where child malnutrition is generally low, frequency of immunization provides a good indicator of actively induced and promoted child health post-pregnancy. There is a standardized level of completeness directed with respect to overall age structure of a woman that is applied to age-specific immunization and overage is in each educational category. Moreover, There exist driving forces behind the immunization process when women classified on the basis of degree of attainment of education. Streetfield's study reflected two different sets for this as one, for educated women, it occurs due to knowledge about the profits of immunization and its protective action. Two, social conformity and compliance with local authorities were the influencing forces for immunization process in case of uneducated women. Hence, conducting more and more of health education campaign and programs aiming at maternal child health and child survival should be given a widespread approach so that every woman from every household gets educated at their best and made aware about the beneficial immunization process. Maternal education and maternal health status. Maternal education as a concept encompasses the process of family planning, preconception, prenatal, and postnatal care. Maternal health is depicted through health of a woman during pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum period, motherhood. For too many women, it is associated with suffering, ill health, and death, and hemorrhage, infection, HBP, unsafe abortion, and obstructed labor still are major direct causes of maternal morbidity and mortality. Preconception care may include providing education, health promotion, screening, interventions for women of reproductive age to reduce risk factors that might affect future pregnancies, while prenatal care is the comprehensive care that women receive and provide for themselves throughout their pregnancy. Women who begin prenatal care early in their pregnancies have better birth outcomes than women who receive little or no care during their pregnancies. Postnatal care includes recovery from childbirth, concerns about newborn care, nutrition, breastfeeding, and family planning. Immediately after delivery occurs a very critical period for newborns and mother. Two-thirds of all maternal deaths occur in this postnatal period. Most women do not have good access to health care and sexual health education services. According to a survey, a woman in sub-Saharan Africa has 1 in 6 chances of dying in pregnancy or childbirth compared to 1 in 4,000 risk in developing country, the largest difference between poor and rich countries of any health indicator. Lesser percentages of death occur in developed countries, showing that they could be avoided if resources and services are easily and sufficiently available. At least 20% of the burden of disease in children below the age of 5 is related to poor maternal health and nutrition as well as quality of care at delivery and during the newborn period. Yearly, 8 million babies die before or during delivery or in the first week of life. Further, many children are tragically left motherless each year. These children are 10 times more likely to die within 2 years of their mother's death. Let's have the look at this. You can see this world map which shows the maternal mortality ratio by a country in the year 2005. Uneducated women especially belong to underdeveloped rural settings where the delivery of newborn occurs at home through unprofessional person and untrained support. Many girls die during labor, most importantly the teenage mothers whose newborns are at risk of suffering from malnutrition or death. In fact, girls giving birth before the age of 15 are 5 times more likely to die during childbirth than women in 20s or more. Globally, more than 120 million women in the age group of 15 to 49 years cannot delay or avoid pregnancy due to the lack of contraceptives, while 40% of all pregnancies are unintended, with high rates among poor, young, uneducated women. A lack of educational services contributes to keeping women out of school and out of marketplace, further increasing the health risk for themselves and their children. Maternal mortality ratio is measured per 100,000 live births. Measuring maternal mortality accurately is difficult except when comprehensive registration of deaths and of causes of death exists. Maternal deaths are clustered around the intrapartum The most common direct cause globally is obstetric hemorrhage. Other causes are obstetric hemorrhage, anemia, sepsis, infection obstructed labor, hypertensive disorders, and unsafe abortion. Some of the major maternal health associated risk factors are high frequency and less spacing of birth, low nutritional level, stature and low maternal age, inappropriate medical and midwife support, unavailability of emergency and intensive treatment if were necessary, lack of management capacity in the health system. Another risk to expectant women is malaria. It can lead to anemia, which increases the risk for maternal and infant mortality and developmental problems for babies. And HIV infection is another increasing threat. Mother to child transmission of HIV continues to be a major problem, with up to 45% of HIV infected mothers transmitting infection to their children. Further, HIV is becoming a major cause of maternal mortality in highly affected countries in southern Africa, especially with the TB re-emergency. When we have such an alarming level of maternal death rates, educated women behave in a more matured and responsible manner. Let's discuss what interventions an educated mother adopts when she happens to face any of the health associated risk factors. Educated mother is aware of positive impact of immunization and vaccination for healthy mother and child. She could easily communicate to a medical practitioner about the symptoms of anemia, and after knowing it goes for proper folic acid supplementation. An educated mother goes for syphilis screening and proper treatment to avoid any kind of harm to the baby. She learns all the complications and symptoms that could be faced by her during pre-eclampsia and eclampsia and goes for prevention through calcium supplementations. She follows intermittent presumptive treatment for malaria and pregnancy, learns about antibiotics for premature rupture of membranes, goes for detection and management of breach. She undergoes labor surveillance. She adopts to clean and hygienic delivery practices. She is well aware about the importance, mechanism, and duration of breastfeeding her newborn. She goes for prevention and management of hypothermia. She knows the relevance of kangaroo mother care for low birth weight newborns. Regularly checks newborn temperature for their health management, proper regulation and check of pure water, sanitation, hygiene around the baby and herself to avoid any disease born out of air and water, detection and treatment of asymptomatic bacteriuria. She is well aware of how to resuscitate a newborn, knows about community-based pneumonia case management including antibiotics, and educated mother adapts to oral rehydration therapy while the young one is suffering from dehydration. Therefore, we conclude that women who are educated about reproduction and reproductive health are able to make better decisions for their families, make better use of existing social services, and make a higher education contribution to household income. Furthermore, women with some formal education are more likely to ensure that their children are immunized and are better informed about nutrition. Indian motherhood programs. There have been several initiatives taken up by the government as well as non-government organizations that are focused in women's empowerment through educational programs as well as health-related programs. We'll talk about them one by one. EduSat. It is a program that enhances the current knowledge of diarrhea management by facilitating lectures and training courses which would allow for dialogue and interaction of hundreds of people simultaneously. Key health issues are to be taught and discussed by doctors, medical specialists, medical students, and healthcare providers at the existing 100 virtual learning centers in Maharashtra with video conferencing health facilities linked by satellite. The Mother and Child Protection Card has introduced through a collaborative effort of Ministry of Women and Child Development and Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. The MCP, that is the Mother and Child Protection Card, is a tool for informing and educating the mother and the family on different aspects of maternal and child care and linking maternal and child care into continuum of care through the Integrated Child Development Services Scheme of Ministry of Women and Child Development and National Rural Health Mission of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. The card also captures some of the key services delivered to the mother and baby during antenatal, intranatal, and postnatal care for ensuring that the minimum package of services are delivered to the beneficiary. Measles immunization. This reduces the incidence of diarrhea by promoting measles vaccination within the first year of child's life. 100% immunization coverage against measles is the program goal. IAP Immunize India is the world's largest vaccination reminder service and is available free of cost to parents anywhere in the country. It is a national non-profit initiative promoted by Indian Academy of Pediatrics. It aims to prevent 500,000 child deaths and disabilities by 2018. Then another program is UNICEF's India Ammaji video on health phone. The Ammaji Health and Nutrition Education series of 42 videos help improve and save children's and mothers' lives. They aim to promote changes in knowledge, attitudes, practices, and beliefs through key messages in the major health topics. It is the expectation from videos that they will help rural women understand the benefits of recommended behavior, address some of the constraints in their social environments, adopt simple household behaviors, and across frontline workers like the Anganwadi workers, ANMs, Ashas, Panchayats, etc. in their communities. They are designed to be used as interpersonal communication tools by individuals and frontline workers in giving out important information to women and caregivers. UNICEF's Awaaz Do program to raise voice and to right to education for every children in India. Then Mahila Samakhya program. This program was launched in 1988 as a result of new education policy. It was created for the empowerment of women from rural areas, especially socially and economically marginalized groups. When the SSA was formed, it initially set up a committee to look into this program, how it was working, and recommends new changes that could be made. Another program, Kasturba Gandhi Balika Vidyalaya Scheme, was launched in July 2004 to provide education to girls as the primary level. It is primarily for the underprivileged and rural areas where literacy level for females is very low. The schools that were set up have 100% reservation, 75% for the backward classes and 25% for below poverty line females. Then there is Beti Bachao Beti Padhao mission that has been initiated to decrease the rates of female feticide and female infanticide, keeping in mind the low sex ratio and better performances of females in different areas. Thus, the aim is to promote the education amongst girls who can take the levels of success and achievement across the globe, and it is possible if antisocial practices are controlled. National Program for Education of Girls at Elementary Level was launched in July 2003. It was incentive to reach out to girls who the SSA was not able to reach through other schemes. The SSA called out to the hardest to reach girls. This scheme was covered by 24 states in India. Under this scheme, model schools have been set up to provide better opportunities to girls. One notable success came in 2013 when the first two girls ever crossed the top 10 ranks of the entrance exam to Indian Institute of Technology. Sibala Leena Madhuri ranked 8th and Aditi Ladha ranked 6th. Child Survival and Safe Motherhood program was to reduce mortality rates and increase the health of mother and child. Some of the other programs emphasizing on maternal education and maternal health are Rural Child Health and National Rural Health Mission, Janani Saraksha Yojana, Asha schemes, etc. Millennium Development Goals. The Millennium Development Goals are the eight international development goals that were established following the Millennium Summit of United Nations in 2000, following the adoption of United Nations Millennium Declaration. All 189 United Nations member states at the time committed to help achieve the following Millennium Development Goals by 2015. 1. To eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. 2. To achieve universal primary education. 3. To promote gender equality. 4. To reduce child mortality. 5. To improve maternal health. 6. To combat HIV, AIDS, malaria and other diseases. 7. To ensure environmental sustainability. And 8. To develop a global partnership for development. The fifth Millennium Development Goal put forward by United Nations proposes to reduce the world's maternity mortality ratio by 75% by the year 2015. Many pregnancy-related deaths are preventable and maternal mortality remains high in Latin America. Nevertheless, according to a recent independent study of 181 countries by Hogan et al., and contrary to the previous reports that showed very little decrease in maternity mortality ratio over decades, the global MMR declined from 422 to 251 per 100,000 live births between 1980 and 2008. In particular, low-income Latin American developing countries such as El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Ecuador, and Bolivia have made substantial progress in reducing MMR. Factors such as fertility rate, per capita income, educational attainment of the female population, access to adequate maternal health facilities and personnel are all thought to be important determinants of maternal health. Additionally, it has been suggested that abortion prohibition may contribute to high maternal mortality rates. Finally, although the influence of other development process indicators such as clean water supply and sanitary sewer access on maternal mortality is virtually unknown, these factors likely influence population health by decreasing epidemics and mortality from diarrheal infectious disease. Interestingly, research has consistently observed an inverse correlation between women's education level and maternal mortality in the developing world. Recent studies have corroborated the findings that educational attainment is a strong independent predictor of all-cause mortality, having simultaneously a modulating effect on other factors. Although it has been suggested that increasing women's education level contributes to modulation of other variables known to influence maternal health, such as reproductive behavior and access to maternal health facilities, this effect on MMR decline has yet to be demonstrated mathematically. However, this may be severely limited by the paucity of large and continuous parallel time series in developing countries. A recent review of the MDG progress shows that the world have only 32% of the way to achieving the child health goal and less than 10% of the way to achieving the goals for maternal health. Unfortunately, on present trends, most countries are likely to achieve either of these goals. Millennium Development Goals 4 aimed at reducing childbirth by two-thirds between 1990 and 2015. Millennium Development Goal 5 has the target of reducing maternity death by 3/4 over the same period. Let us summarize what we have learnt in this module. The world on progression, the nation is on progression, but the fact is that this progress occurs only on socio-economic front. We still have the low health status of females all across the globe, particularly in our country in India. Although government has been taking various initiatives since so many years to improve the health of females, there has been lack of its proper implementation and many people are still beyond the outreach of these programs and plannings. Even today, people fear their child being vaccinated or going to medical professionals for their delivery so much. The need of the hour is to create proper awareness among people to provide them with proper amenities and, most importantly of all, promoting women education. There should be such policies and programs designed to implement evidence-based strategies and detailed micro-level planning. We need proper management to keep an eye on all governmental programs and others, assessing their achievements and developmental records on regular basis. We need improvement in health and education infrastructure. We need to promoting gender equality so that girls may attain same status and responsibilities that a boy does. But this is not a day's work. Such kind of proper planning and implementation will take a decade or so. Thank you.